Brooke Moriber. Welcome to a social media edition of the Music Universe podcast. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Always glad to have talent of all kinds on. And you're actually transitioning from a Broadway star to country music singer and songwriter. Please tell us about that journey.
Oh, it's been interesting. I actually always wanted to be a recording artist since before I don't even know, I started singing before I could even speak, but I was always fascinated with my parents bringing home albums and playing them and hearing voices and songs that I could listen to whenever I wanted to. So that's always what I wanted to do. But one night they came home from seeing a Broadway musical, and I grew up in New York City, so that's kind of what you do. And
Mhm.
I heard a little girl on the cast album recording singing, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I want to do that. Why can't I do that?" So with a lot of begging and crying because my parents didn't want me to get involved in the business. They allowed me to audition, and I ended up booking the role of Little Cosette when I was 8 years old on Broadway. And it was a pretty thrilling way to get started as a performer. And I ended up doing 7 Broadway shows after that. And at a certain point, I actually developed an eye disease and I lost my eyesight for 4 years.
Mm.
And that's where I fell in love with songwriting. That's what became my best friend at the time and what truly got me through it and is kind of, my best friend and the thing that gets me through everything now. So at that point, I realized that I didn't want to play a part on stage and pretend to be somebody else. I wanted to really connect one on one with other people and tell them my story. And I truly believe that music is what healed me. So I felt like my responsibility was to go out there and share my music and just help other people. You write a song about something, and what I love about music is I'll hear a song and say, "Yes, I've been through that. I get it. Somebody gets what I went through." So I wanted to do that more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, music heals. I'm a musician first, or I had been, and haven't, played with anyone for a while. So I know what impact it can have on people. Even as a listener too, you just hear something and it just makes you want to tear up sometimes. So it
Yeah.
it it has that impact on people, and being able to write and share your own has an even bigger impact, doesn't it?
Well, you're healing yourself in the writing process, and then you're healing other people in the sharing process, and it's just what better life is that than that?
Oh no, that's probably the best well put description of being a singer and songwriter that I've heard yet on this show. You're healing yourself and you're healing others. So it's great. Um, I want to get back to the rare eye disease in a minute, but you started at Broadway at 8. Was that terrifying as an 8-year-old child?
It was so exciting until I got on the stage and I heard the audience. And uh, in Les Miserables, there was a thing called a turntable and a scrim. So
Hmm.
when each scene would come up, the kind of thin curtain, the scrim would come up and the turntable would turn around for the next kind of vignette of a scene. And Little Cosette starts sweeping, and you hear the Castle on a Cloud music for anyone who knows the Les Miserables soundtrack. I heard the music start, the scrim hadn't gone on yet, and I almost ran off the stage, and the stage manager had to grab me and say, "You have to go on, you have to go on." And I just completely freaked out. I realized what was happening for the first time.
Yeah.
But the minute all of a sudden I'm on the turntable and oh, there's the audience. Oh, you got to start singing. I started to sing, and all of the nerves went away, and I felt at home. And honestly, it hasn't changed. I'm always a little nervous before I go on, and then the minute I start singing, I'm home. But there's always that adrenaline before. I always feel like something's wrong if I feel too calm.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're so kind of revved up but nervous before you hit the stage. But once you hit it, it's like, yeah, you're in your place.
Yeah, you jump off the cliff and then you're home. Somehow you end up home.
Right. So when you were doing Broadway, what was really the highlight that you can, recall that really is like, I love doing this, and besides the eye disease, of course, but I really love doing this, but I also want to pursue this aspect of music.
Do you know, even when I was 8 years old, I knew I wanted to be a recording artist. The thing that excited me the most was hearing that cast album and listening to the
Mm.
albums that my parents would bring home. I grew up a native New Yorker, but my parents were into country. I was exposed to all kinds of different things. I grew up across the street from Washington Square Park, so lots of folk music.
Oh yeah.
Broadway just happened to be what I ended up doing because I sang and I danced and I acted. And don't get me wrong, I loved it. But it wasn't what was truly, truly deep in my heart that I wanted to do. And it took this loss of my eyesight to kind of make me see that if I
Right.
didn't go and pursue this real deep down dream of mine, it's when the eye disease went into remission is when I went to Nashville and I decided, okay, if I want to be a songwriter, I got to get really good. I'm going to go to Nashville. That's where you go to hone your craft.
Hmm. Yeah. And let's talk about Nashville. You just signed with Reviver Records. You released your debut track on the album last year, This Town Made Us. Tell me about that song and tell us the inspiration of some recent events that happened in Nashville for your songwriting.
So, This Town Made Us is a song that I kind of wrote for both of my hometowns. I consider Nashville and New York City both of my hometowns now. I spend most of my time in Nashville making music. I do still reside in New York City, even though I'm barely here. I happen to be here right this moment, which is nice.
Oh wow.
But between the touring and being in Nashville when I'm making music, I'm rarely here. The thing that sparked the writing of This Town Made Us was actually an article in the New York Post that I read in 2020 saying New York City is dead. And
Hmm.
it felt like a stab in the heart, even though I'm not here as often as, I used to be. I still am a very, very proud native New Yorker. It's in my blood.
Hmm.
And that just felt, it almost the reading the article almost felt like they were celebrating the fact that New York City was suffering so much from the pandemic and yay, people are fleeing in droves and just kind of listen, we got through 9/11. You tear us down, we build it back bigger, better, and stronger. And
Right.
so I wanted to write a song in response to that article, but that was also not just kind of, a nasty letter to the to the guy from the New York Post, but a very positive message, something for all the people that stayed. And then I remembered also at the same time, my other hometown had just been hit by this horrible tornado, which I escaped by one day. I had left
Wow.
Nashville. That tornado in 2020 hit the day after I arrived back in New York City, and the week after that, we went on lockdown.
Yeah.
So it was like my heart was doubly broken. Both of these places that I love so much were suffering so much. So, if the song was basically based on what both of those places that I love so much were going through, but it's a song for, it's about hometown pride. It's for anyone from anywhere who loves where they come from and feels like it made them who they are.
No, of course. Definitely relatable. So during lockdown, were you stuck in New York or were you in Nashville or were you able to go back and forth?
Oh, I was stuck in New York.
And I ask if you were able to go back and forth because some people still traveled.
I didn't leave my apartment. I was in the middle of, I don't know how familiar, you are with New York City, but I was in Hell's Kitchen slash Garment District. That's where I live,
Hmm.
in a little studio apartment. And I was there for 3 months without going outside the door because
Oh,
it, it was in the middle of everything. You walked outside and you did not like what you saw. New York City was really devastated.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. It was just a scary time, but I did not go back and forth. I learned how to Zoom, right, which was great. We now like Zoom writes are like the thing. I
Hmm.
taught myself how to use Pro Tools, so I was doing my own recordings, and it really actually forced me to become a better artist. And it also made me realize why remember why I started writing music in the first place. I was pretty exhausted traveling back and forth and recording and writing and trying to figure out during the A&R process with Reviver, who am I? What's her message? And I never talked about the eye disease. I never talked about not being able to see for 4 years because it was too sensitive of a subject for me. But somehow just kind of being stuck in the apartment for 3 months made me remember and think, you know what, this is a story I want to share with people, and this is who I am, and this is why I write my music. And I kind of figured myself out as an artist and who I really wanted to be at that point.
Well, I don't know how you could stay in your apartment for 3 months. I know that had to be extremely difficult.
It's like
Um,
every day you think it's going to be over, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's 3 months later.
right. Your new single Savior. Let's talk about that. It's out July 22nd.
I'm so excited about this one. I wrote this one a while back, and I think it has a message that a lot of people can connect with. The writing process of it was a healing process for me. It's a song about being in a relationship with someone and learning to love someone in a way that's not enabling them, learning to say no so that they can learn to help themselves.
Hmm. You mentioned touring earlier. What's that like for the last half of the year here for you?
Invigorating, exhausting, just awesome in so many ways. I've made so many friends along the way, and it's just I feel very blessed to be able to be sharing my music with so many people in all these different states, and touring the country with it is just very cool. I feel very lucky.
Yeah. And where can fans check out your tour dates?
So I'm pretty easy to find online anywhere. I'm always under at Brooke Moriber. That's Brooke with an E, Moriber. And just go on my Spotify. If you follow me on Spotify, you'll be alerted to all of my live shows.
Brooke, best of luck, and let's hope your eyesight stays in remission. Let's
Oh,
hope
it's
you
been in
keep it.
remission for a long time. It's never going to happen again. I
Oh,
know
well,
it.
that's great. I wanted to ask that, but
In fact, the doctors were shocked. It was not supposed to go into remission, and it
oh,
did.
really?
And I know that it was because the music got me through.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I mean, if you want to elaborate, now's your time.
Well, I don't. I mean, I woke up one morning and I couldn't see my face in the mirror, and I basically just saw blobs of color. And uh, the eye disease itself is called uveitis pars planitis. It was a severe form of it, and it used to be the leading cause of blindness until they invented chemotherapy and steroids. So not only was I suffering from the lack of eyesight, I also lost my hair, and
Hmm.
I was a teenager learning books on tape for high school. It was a struggle in many ways, and uh, I would never wish it on my worst enemy. But at the same time, I wouldn't be doing this now if it wasn't for that. So I'm grateful to it in many ways, and I'm so grateful that I'm on the other side of it. And I know in my heart of hearts that it's never going to come back.
No, that's awesome. Definitely a survivor in that case, and looking forward to Savior coming out here. A couple weeks actually. So
Yeah, July 22nd.
awesome. All right. Well, Brooke, thank you, and hope to see you on the road soon.
Thank you.